Okay, so what we're going to do is get our scene set up so that we can start building some basic walls. And I want to build the walls in 3ds Max because what I want to do is create some base pieces that I can take into Unity, get a world set up, and then go into Max and add more details, and then update the mesh in Unity and be able to move along the production line. Does that make sense? All right. So first thing we need to do is make sure our scale is correct. We want to make sure that the scale in one software matches the scale in another software. Substance is worried about textures. Unity is worried about textures and the size of the geometry. 3ds Max is worried about the size of geometry and textures as well. Each one has their own unique way of handling it, and they all have their own reasons for doing it. So with 3ds Max, I'm going to go ahead and make things pretty simple and generic. Because this is a CAD software, I'm going to go into Customize, Unit Setup, and actually tell the software how we're going to use our measurements. We can go metric right here, which I've done before, US standard, which I never do because 12s, 32s, and 64s, like 64 will work, 32 will work, 12 gets a little rambunctious. And I'm not good at those numbers. I wasn't good to be a carpenter. What we're going to do, though, we're going to use generic units and keep it just nice and generic. A unit is a unit, and that's all it measures. Up here is the very top button, System Unit Setup. This is going to describe how big our boxes are inside the grid. And right now, we're going to set up to centimeters. The default for the software is inches, but we want to use centimeters. And the reason why I want to use centimeters is because we want to go inside the metric level to the sub-metric, which is the centimeters, and be able to get sizes of books and chairs and things of that nature, which will fit inside the world of our human, who by default is about 1.5 meters tall, and I think a meter at 0.3. It's like 1.3 meters. It's 6 feet. 6 feet-ish. So we'll just round up to 2. 2 is a good solid number. Any arguments? It's my class. Don't argue. All right, so what I'm going to do is just create a basic reference. And so from here, I'm going to create a box. I'm just going to set it up to where it's 2 meters tall. Actually, 200 meters, excuse me. 200 centimeters. I'm all over the place. 30 by 30, so he's 0.3 meters by 0.3 meters. And he's 200 meters tall. And that's basically our human reference. You know, it's a little tall. We can probably work within this region right here, but it just gives us a base starting point to work with. Now, I will not lie to you guys because that's just not who I am. I screw this stuff up all the time right here. But once I go back and forth and get a basic idea, it's pretty straightforward. Now, for you guys in design, what class was that modeling class? That was world building?
Level design.
Level design. You're going to be using tools in Unity to allow you to build a lot of the same ways that we're building in here, but it gives you a very boxy, Minecraft-y, straightforward, simple setup, which is what you need for your class. And so what I want to do is kind of build the same thing, but we want to create a warehouse of awesomeness so that the designers can go pick and choose as they go, so they can get different ideas and different styles in there. So as artists, we want to work in a way that allows them to be able to create that. All right, so there's my basic setup. What I normally do, and I'll just do this real quick so you guys can see it. Let's first name it. And I'm going to leave them in this procedural level in case I need to make the adjustments, because I'm sure I'm already anticipating it just because I know I stumbled through things and rushed things. So I got him set up. It's just a character. What I want to do is I can right click on him and go to Object Properties, and I'm going to turn him, I think there's a see-through or wireframe. Where are you? I'm going to turn off Show Frozen in Gray, and I think there says, okay, shadows.
See-through.
See-through. See-through is going to make it, not see-through. I want to make it wireframe. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn that Frozen in Gray so it stays. It won't turn gray. What I need to do is add a material that's wireframe. So let me show you that real quick. We've shown the material editor before. It's M on the keyboard, which will toggle it. And these 2 balls go into the box. I'm going to do a standard material. Double click on the flag, and then I'm going to apply it. And I'm going to turn on wireframe right here. And what that does is it gives me a wireframe for the object. And that just makes it see-through, makes it easier to think, and like it's actually more effective and more efficient for some of the. I work on a laptop. My video card does not like the see-through mode. It likes the wireframe mode, so it helps me do that. Okay, so I got that set up. I'm going to make it to where I can't select it by freezing it, or freeze selection. Boop, boop. Of course, it shows Frozen in Gray. Thought I told you. There we go. Freeze it again. And so now I have that set up. What I can do here is kind of get a set up what I want with my walls. First easy thing you do is build a box, and I'll probably build a box that's going to be a little taller. And what I want to do is kind of make it a rectangle. I want I want it 1 by 2, essentially, in terms of proportions. And the way I'm looking at this is it's a square texture, right? 2048, 1024 by 1024, whatever. Video games love square textures. So you got one side of the wall and you got the other side of the wall. 2 walls, 1 texture, 1 piece of geometry, easy to work with. Does that make sense, right? So if I get this set up in a certain way, I'm looking at certain. So I can do 300 by, let's do 600, and we'll make it 30 in height, which is the thickness right here. All right, so it's a pretty thick wall, but that's okay. If you think about, getting back to that original discussion I was saying, 2x4s, we're gonna see more of that geometry, that realism be brought into this world in a lot of ways. And a lot of this has to be considering how architecture will build things. We don't have paper thin walls. We have walls that have 2x4s, then they have insulation, and then they have the actual drywall, and then they'll have the paint and all that stuff. So there's thickness to it. So that's not a problem. You should go ahead and consider that. If we're going to do something from a castle type era, stone blocks. They're built to be fortified, right? So think in those terms. If you want to do something that's a brick, you still have the interior and the exterior, so you're still going to have 2 layers of it. So just kind of be conscientious of what kind of surface you're using. So from here, I can just export. I have a wall. I want to get the UVs. So I'm going to go ahead and get the UVs set up real quick. This should not surprise anyone how I'm doing this. Just grabbing this, flatten mapping. All right, so here we go. This looks almost exactly what I'm after. What I'll do is actually go ahead and take this side right here, take this edge, and stitch selected, and then stitch selected here. And I'm just going to stitch select at the top. And then on over here, on this piece, I should have the bottom right there. So there's that piece right there. So this piece has been flipped over. So let's go ahead and check by using texture checker. Turn on the texture, and we should see, yep, see us upside down. Grab that, and we'll just rotate it 90 degrees. And from there, since that's on top, I can just go ahead and make that. Stitch this to the bottom part, stitch selected. All right, I'll just pack it. All right, so there's the reason why I like my walls 2x1. Makes sense? I mean, you can see you have 2 textures, maximize the space, and I got room to do things. Now, the neat thing is that if I want to create doors and windows, the way I used to do it was a very fast and effective way, but I'm not sure I'm going to go this route. I want to kind of keep it simple for you guys and keep the tools where we're at with the tools, and we'll build different things using the other way I want to do it. You may want to take just a minute to get things squared away a little bit so they all line up, because you may have shared stickers or placements on each wall, so kind of be very conscientious of that situation. But right there, go ahead and collapse. Now I'm going to name it. I'm going to make it edible poly, not edible mesh. Now I'm going to name it. I'm going to name it wall. OO. All right. I'm going to start with wall. Big naming convention. Wall with window. Wall with 2 windows. Wall with curved windows. Wall with curved door. Wall with straight door. You see what I'm saying? You go to the search when you have 2,000 assets. You can go to wall, then you can go to the next step of that naming convention, then funnel it down the line. So it's not unusual for me to have a bucket full of sci-fi walls, Western walls, Victorian era walls, castle walls in one project file, because why wouldn't you want to have all that stuff? I like all the stuff, right? So from here I can say, all right, I got my basic wall. And what I want you guys to think about here is how we're going to place it. You know, remember what I don't know if I talked about the pivot in Max versus the pivot in Unity. If I move my object over here, that's the sub object, correct? Right? I just moved the sub object, but see where my pivot's at? It's where I left it, which is basically at origin. Make sure that I'm correct on this too. It's like, basically, if I threw my object out of here in Unity and into Unity, and I leave the pivot out there, the object's out there, the pivot point's still going to be looking for the origin in Unity. By default, it'll still give you a working pivot that'll go to that object, but the actual default pivot's going to be in the center there, and that'll cause a lot of problems if you're scaling and trying to control things through scripting. Your scale function may be centered off the origin and not off the actual localized object. So when you're exporting anything out of Unity, I want you to put it at the origin, but also put it in a way that makes sense to us as people who want to lay things out. Such as an example, the door. What does the door pivot on? The center of the object? Is it a revolving door? Or pivots on the side where the hinges are, right? That's a much easier way to start placing objects if you actually give that kind of pivot point. So in my experience, and the tools are getting better for it, I like to put the object, I like it center on the median, on the height, on the thin, basically, right? But I like it actually over here where the top left, where the bottom left corner of the object is actually at the origin. You don't have to do this to this degree, but I think it really makes a difference when you start actually getting to where you're laying out multiple pieces. All right, so from here, now I have this idea that my wall is more of a revolving door, and what that allows me to do is I can quickly, let's turn on snap, pivot snap, 90, make an instance. 90, make an instance, and you can see how quickly I can make a city. Boop. You get the idea. I mean, that's not shocking. Y'all saw this eons ago, just not in this application. But now I can think about, oh, well, I want to see through this damn thing. Cool. Now, the neat thing is that when I have this geometry set up like this, I don't really have to take anything out in terms of a texture, because a window is just a hole through the wall, right? So do I need a second texture for this window wall, technically? I mean, if we do it like Skyrim, where they put all the windows as an exterior object onto their walls, then I just do that. So I give designers walls and windows and say, figure it out yourself. Give you the freedom. You see where I'm going with that, right? So, but I do want to have some access to it. Let's say we're doing a first-person shooter. Sniper rifles, arrows, we need to shoot through windows. So let's get some windows built in here. And that's not complicated at all. It's probably as you would expect it to have happen. What I'm going to do is hit Control V to create a copy. I'm going to go ahead and name it wall win 00, let's go 0000. All right, make a copy of it. Second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the color. I'll put materials on in Substance. I'll put materials on in Unity. I don't care. But if I'm going to open up my sourcing, I need to know the difference between the two objects quickly, and that's why I like multiple colors. So I'm going to isolate by hitting Alt-Q, oopsie, which is this blue box right here as well. And then from here, simple tools we've seen before. We'll put a window right in the center. So I go to Edge Mode, select this edge here, which is the top ring, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Connect tool with options, give myself 2 splits, and hit OK. Now, here's where I get to an interesting situation when teaching this tool. I want y'all to go forward and kind of press hard through the things you want to do, but now I'm starting to thinking, well, what if I want to add different things to my object? Like, y'all ever noticed on the bottom parts of the walls, the kick plate, the trim? I need to put that into all my walls. I should make sure I have that set up for all my walls then. So let's anticipate that. Could I do that in Substance though? Pretty quickly. So maybe I can just wait. You see what I'm saying? I need to anticipate this. What kind of trim is my window going to look like? Well, I'm just going to do some basic 1980s architecture in Central Texas.
Unless you added like depth to it, you know, like a.
Well, it could get that's a normal map. I don't need that much. Now, crown molding, which has the actual curvature,
like
I will probably want to model that. But in the same note, I can probably just build a couple pieces, stick it on a couple walls, and see if that's the most efficient way. I can build that separately, but that's a very fair point, right? And now the same thing, trim around windows, trim around doors, right? Right. The reason why we had trims because we're covering up all the junk that makes all the surface look real. Y'all seen a house built before, right? You ever replaced a door or a window? That nothing matches up cleanly. That's why we cover it up. Magic of trim. That's why it costs money. All right. So I'm gonna go forward with that. We got that substance or this connection there. So now I'm gonna choose the perpendicular angle of edges. Do the same thing, just do another connect. And this time I'm going to do 2 again. I'm going to kind of separate them up a little bit. So now I want to talk about what kind of window is it. I didn't really do any reference, so let's just make it just kind of typical and kind of live it up a little bit. And there. So there we got our box shape. Hit that, click on that, delete that, and now I can bridge. Nothing new, right? Makes sense? So you guys can quickly build your rooms out just that alone. Now, what I want to go over, since this is actually more about modeling and this is about level design, I want to encourage you guys not to collapse everything until you are absolutely sure you're ready to collapse everything. Meaning, is this going to be the actual full window that I'm going to use? Do I want to put a window into this object? Is it going to be barred? Is it going to be glass? Is it broken? Well, shit, if I'm going to have all those options, how about I just make the window that size and I just swap out the windows as I want and assemble it in the game engine? Give the designers the choice. Yes?
Well, if you're going to do glass, would you just do a single polygon and insert it in there after it's bridged?
Okay, so that's an excellent question, because what you're asking is if I'm just going to do one big thing, can I just put a plain glass inside the space here? And absolutely you can. But you got to think about what that imagery infers. A big chunk of glass on a big open space of wall means money. And it means that there's a sense of this is not an issue. So it's going to be nice. It's going to be fancy. And if you actually put in more of like this metal trim right here with busted out glass and barred out windows and things that are just like small placements, you get a sense that it's not rich and it has a different kind of purpose. Look at the windows of an actual functioning warehouse versus the windows of a building that was a warehouse and converted into an office. Those windows are going to be much more higher quality because they don't have to do the same kind of functionality that the warehouse was. The warehouse is at risk of breakage and all kinds of just trash, which gives it a different characteristic. So that's a good question. The point is, what are we building, right? I'm going to build a more particular window, but a plated glass will work 100%. So here, grab those. I'm going to quickly bridge it.
Do things have to be airtight in this?
Well, see, that's another good question. No, they don't. But you're also a burgeoning artist, so you should think about how you can make your craftsmanship that high quality. It's a pain in the ass for some things, like the rivets on a shield. Technically, that could be done on a texture, so we didn't even need to model them. But I wanted to show you the array tool because it's too damn cool, right? So little things necessarily don't need a lot of modeling, and it can be done with surfacing. And that's another one of those things that we're going to try to look at. Now, on the same note, if we want to make something look good, the more airtight you make it, the more complicated your UVs become, but the higher quality the craftsmanship is. So it's just kind of thinking about it. Like, if you think about how a window trim is built, they don't have things crashing through. They have gaps, and they have seams. And if you can create the area for that seam to get there for the artist to create and the designer to show off, it does add a sense of immersion. But again, how much detail are we looking to go with? If I'm going to build a mobile game, not going to put it in there. But if I'm going to do a first-person shooter where everyone's like right there and it's very fast and furious, I'll do a little bit of it. But if it's a slow, meticulous game like Fallout, I might think about doing it. So again, what's the output? What's the input? What's the point of it? So those are all relevant questions. For us, based on where we want to go and what we want to do, don't lose your head on making something airtight for this class for like something like a window trim. That's not necessary. All right, but where you can, and you're just trying to just move through things and not be, and try to, like, you kind of get lazy with things and things don't always work out, maybe it's time to take the extra step to make it a little cleaner, a little more crafted. Does that make sense? So, great question again. Okay, I'm going to detach those selected faces as a clone and name it. I'm just going to call it window and so, and go into here. And see if we can select it. There we go. Boop, boop. Now, what do y'all notice about the first thing that happened when I created this object? Let's go ahead and give it a new color.
It only has one face.
It only has one set of face. Well, there's 4, but yeah, there's not much there. Let's put that there. So now, what else do you notice? Have y'all noticed the pivot? The pivot's in the exact same place as the wall, which means that window can snap right into it. So at the moment, these two pieces are very happy. The only problem is, and this is something that you will also see when you start doing level layouts and things of that nature. When you look at, yeah, I got to do something real quick. Let me just do a quick extrusion so I can select it easier. Where are you? Extrude. Boop. Local. Cool. All right, so now I can see it. So first off, okay, now this window and this wall are 100% happy. I don't know if this will go out like this in the game engine. I actually may move the window down over here, just slide it over, or just have it in the center, and then the designer can slap it together. But at the moment, the way I'm modeling it and the way I'm in source, I'll keep it because it will help me work in 3ds Max more effectively. Okay, but you'll see as you discover things what you want to get out of it. The other thing, do I need to create the geometry on this frame right here at this particular point in time? Ever. And if there's only going to be one-way wall, I don't even need to make this glass see-through. But again, if we're going to do a sniper kind of gun shooter where we need that technology to go through the space, then we'll leave it. But I can leave all that stuff right there. I don't need the extra geometry at all. All right, from there I can build the rest of my window very quickly just by assembling things and unwrapping things and going forward. So let's go ahead and talk about the concepts that I was getting at. Let's export this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the name, and then I'm going to export selected. I'm going to paste the name right there. I'm going to put it in the same folder I put in with in my scenes folder where I've been putting everything else. This is Wallwin 00, so that's what I want. The settings haven't changed, so I'm going to go ahead and keep them. I'm going to do the same thing with the window 00. And this hasn't changed, as in going towards substance, so that's a good thing. So I know I can get these things into Paint. Let's go ahead and get these things into the engine. Do the same thing. I'm going to go into Import New Asset. And I'm going to go find where my assets are. I'm going to grab both of them. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to make copies. And import. And there's our two pieces. So I can drag this wall in here. That means that either my scale and max for the wall is small, or the scale for my shield is enormous. Probably the shield because I didn't pay attention. But now I can go in here and I can slap this window in here and I can move things around. But do you see how Unity has this working axis right on the actual object? It's showing that the actual access point of the actual object itself and not the actual local axis. You go to Unity, you go to Unreal and you'll get a different scenario altogether. Has anyone used Unreal? Okay, so Unreal is very finicky about that. I don't do other things. So I can work on getting this snapped. I have to get my feet back into this. I haven't used it in a while. But the idea is that here I can go and then create an empty and make it L1 asset. And so my designers can, so here I go create an empty. We'll give it a name. I like what Unreal suggests to do. They say SA, static asset. Because you'll have materials with the same naming convention, so it'll be a little easier to keep things in check. So now I have this. I'm going to grab these two pieces and drag them right into this. And so now I can grab this, throw them into here. I can delete this one if I want to, but it now becomes an actual static mesh, which allows me to get to different pieces and edit them independently. And this is what we're going to be working towards. So y'all see what the whole point of this? Now, when you're going into your asset list and the ideas of what you're going to be modeling for your midterm and your final, I want you to think in these kinds of terms. You don't have to have the solution. You're going to learn more by doing than you will by thinking it, trying to overthink it. But anticipate these kinds of steps when you're working on what your space will look like. All right? So the rules for this particular project, I want no more than 6 walls. I want at least 1 door, 1 window. And then from the furniture, we'll create an asset list, and I'll share with you guys on the classroom. And that will be how we go forward for the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
So we don't need to worry about floor or roof?
The floor, we'll just use the landscape thing, and on the roof, you can make a square wall, put enough texture on there, works just as effectively.
So for
You
the
can do a
floor,
roof
we'll
too.
use like a texture if we want it to look a certain way.
Yeah, if you want, again, a floor and a ceiling can be your walls assembled with different textures. So we can reuse different pieces in different ways. But yeah, ceiling, walls, floors. We'll do a bench, table. I think we'll do a training dummy of some sort. I'd like to do something like that, or a hanging bag or some kind of cool thing that has a couple of complex objects and a couple of complex textures that we can kind of play around with. And that should kind of wrap up this midterm. All right. So do next week, this next class. Let's do next class. Do next class a quick, easy mood board and a quick, simple, basic story about what your room is. You don't have to go deep, and you don't have to be original. But come on, be original. It's not hard. How many of y'all already have an idea? Most of y'all. Sweet. And how many of y'all think you can probably come up with the idea 5 minutes before class on Thursday? All of us, I hope. Cool. All right, so that's the video for this. That's the idea.